Our body has a powerful army that protects from various types of threats. These threats can come in the form of mechanical injuries, the entry of germs, or the entry of other foreign particles like dust. This personal army is called the immune system. Every day, we encounter a huge number of bacteria, viruses, and other disease or causing organisms, which due to our immune system, an army of cells that is always roaming our body, ready to ward off any attack. The immune system can be broadly divided into two parts: innate and adaptive immunity. Innate immunity or nonspecific immunity is the body's first natural defense to any intruder. This system doesn't care what is killing. Its primary goal is to prevent any intruder from entering the body. And if it does enter, then the immune system kills this intruder. It doesn't differentiate between one pathogen and another. The first component of this defensive system is your skin. Any organism trying to get into the body is stopped by the skin, our largest organ of the body, which covers us. Secondly, there is the mucous lining of all our organs. The sticky, viscous fluid of this lining traps any pathogen trying to get past. These are the physical barriers. However, we also have chemical barriers, such as lysosome in the eyes or the acid in the stomach, which kills pathogens trying to gain entry. The genitourinary tract and other places have their own normal flora or microbial community. These compete with pathogens for space and food, and therefore also act as a barrier. The next line of defense is inflammation, which is done by mast cells. These cells are constantly searching for suspicious objects in the body. When they find something, they release signal in the form of histamine molecules. These alert the body and blood is rushed to the problem area. This causes inflammation and also brings leukocytes, or white blood cells, which are soldiers in our body cellular army. Once they come, all hell breaks loose. Sometimes the intruder may not be a germ, but rather a harmless thing like dust particle. The body still causes a full immune reaction to this intruder, which is how allergic reactions occur. In the fortress of our body, the leukocytes are VIPs. They have an all-access pass to the body except to the brain and spinal cord.
Our leukocytes are many types. Those that belong to the innate system are the phagocytes. These cells can either patrol your body like the neutrophils, or they can stay in certain places and wait for their cue. Neutrophils are the most abundant cells. They patrol to the body and can get to a breach site very quick. These cellular soldiers kill the infectious cell and then die, which leads to a pus formation. They are also the big bad wolves, or the macrophages. These cells are like hungry, ravenous monsters who simply engulf unwanted pathogens. Instead of roaming freely in our body, they are collected in certain places. These cells can consume about 100 pathogens before they die, but they can also detect our cells that have gone rogue, such as cancer cells, and kill them too. Beyond that, we also have the natural killer cells. These cells can efficiently detect when our cells have gone rogue or infected with a virus. NKCs detected a protein produced by normal cells called the major histocompatibility complex, or MHC. Whenever a cell isn't normal, it stops producing this protein. The NKCs move around constantly, checking our cells for this type of deficiency, and when they finally find an abnormal cells, They simply bind to it and release chemicals that will destroy it. The last cells of our innate immune system are the dendritic cells. These are found in places that come in contact with the outside environment, such as the nose, lungs, and etc. They are the link between our innate and adaptive immune system. They eat pathogens and then carry information about to our adaptive immune system cells. This information is produced and shared in the form of antigens. Antigens are the traces that pathogens leave around. They are molecules found on the surface of pathogens that can be detected by our adaptive immune system for recognition. The dendritic cells pass on this information to our T cells. However, macrophages can also perform this function. There is also adaptive or acquired immune system. This system is more efficient as it can differentiate between types of pathogens. It has two main components, T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes. T cells come to play when an infection has already occurred, thus bring the cell-mediated immune response. B cells join the light when the pathogens have entered but haven't yet caused any disease. This is called humoral immune response. Some T cells take signals from the dendritic cells, or macrophages, and thus called helper T cells. Helper T cells forming effector, which are basically cells that cycle through the body and call the cavalry, namely other white blood cells. These also keep a record for this antigen for future references. Sometimes, some cells of our body know that the loss of the battle, they become heavily infected with pathogens, but the immune system brings out the cytotoxic T cells. These cells rush over and perform a mercy killing for the infected and dying cell. The B cells, they produce antibodies which fit on the antigens of pathogens. These antibodies crowd around a pathogen and act like tags. They signal the macrophages to come and kill the marked pathogen. These also produce B cell memory when they encountered antigen. B and T cells jointly maintain a record of all encountered infection and strengthen and solidify the body immune response to these infections. Our innate immune response is quicker through non-specific gets into action within hours and is pretty strong, but when things get out of hand, the innate system calls for help from acquired immune system but days before it responds.
The production and maturation of certain defense cells, the lymphocytes. Bone marrow and the thymus, a gland situated above the heart and behind the breastbone, are so-called primary lymphoid organs. The bone marrow produces defense cells. Some of these defense cells, the so-called T lymphocytes, T stands for thymus, are differentiated in the thymus. That means that this is where they develop into cells that are capable of recognizing non-self proteins, so-called antigens. The secondary lymphatic organs are the place where the defense cells do their actual work. These organs include the lymph nodes, the spleen, the tonsils and other specialized tissues in the mucous membranes of the bowel, for example. In these places, the defense cells have constant contact with non-self substances and pathogens. Bone marrow is a sponge-like tissue situated inside of the bones. Most defense cells are produced and then also multiply here. They then migrate from the bone marrow into the bloodstream and reach other organs and tissues, where the defense cells mature and specialize. The thymus, also called the thymus gland, is only fully developed in children. From adolescence onwards, it is slowly turned into fat tissue. The gland-like organ is situated behind the breastbone above the heart. Certain defense cells are differentiated in the thymus. The so-called T lymphocytes, or T cells for short, among other things, are responsible for coordinating the innate and the adaptive immune system. The lymphatic system of lymph nodes and vessels is important for continually exchanging substances between the blood and the tissue in the body. Fluid constantly leaves the blood, and defense cells and proteins migrate into the surrounding tissue. Most of the fluid is later taken back into the blood vessels. The spleen is situated in the left upper abdomen, beneath the diaphragm. It has a variety of tasks in the defense system. In the unborn child, the spleen mainly produces blood and defense cells. After birth, this organ is mainly responsible for removing blood cells and for specific defense functions. Tonsils also belong to the defense system. Due to their special position at the throat and palate, their defense cells come into contact with pathogens especially soon, and can activate the immune system immediately. Their tissue contains mainly lymphocytes. The bowel plays a central role in defending the body against pathogens. More than half of all cells that produce antibodies are found in the bowel wall, especially in the last part of the small bowel and in the appendix. These cells recognize pathogens and other non-self substances, and mark and destroy them. They also store information on these non-self substances to be able to react faster the next time. Peyer's patches are small masses of lymphatic tissue found throughout the ileum region of the small intestine. Also known as aggregated lymphoid nodules, they form an important part of the immune system by monitoring intestinal bacteria populations and preventing the growth of pathogenic bacteria in the intestines.